With the mission on Coruscant accomplished, Darth Vader was sent by his new master to the volcanic planet Mustafar to eliminate the separatist leaders who once fueled the wars. "We will leave no trace," said Palpatine. In the heart of lava and steel, Vader fulfilled his role with cruelty. The leaders of the Confederacy fell one by one, their eyes wide and their pleas muffled by lightsabers. Meanwhile, Obi-Wan Kenobi, tormented by the collapse of the Order, searched for answers. He found Padmé in her apartment, racked with doubt and despair. She still believed she could save Anakin, but Kenobi knew it was impossible. "He killed children, Padmé. I saw it with my own eyes. The records are in the temple archives. See for yourself." He projected the holograms. Vader, saber in hand, running through the purity of the youngsters. Padmé's tears were not enough to erase those images. In a previous reality, she would have gone to Mustafar in the hope of bringing Anakin back. But not this time. The pain was too great. Padmé was taken by Obi-Wan to Naboo, where her family still lived. With local medical support, she went into labor. The silence of the Green Plains contrasted with the muffled cries of war. There, surrounded by a handful of allies and protected by Obi-Wan, Padmé gave birth to 2 children, Luke and Leia. Fragile but full of the Force, she held them tenderly, already sensing that their destinies would be great. Obi-Wan, for his part, swore to protect them with his life. The fall of the Republic was complete, but there was hope hidden in the arms of a mother. Meanwhile, on Coruscant, Darth Vader returned. He walked through the empty Senate chambers and made his way to Padmé's quarters. There was no sign of her. He searched every inch of the apartment, destroying furniture with the Force in a fit of rage. "Where is she?" he roared, eyes filled with hatred and fear. He contacted Palpatine, demanding answers. The Emperor looked at him coldly. "You've lost her. She didn't want to be part of the New Order." But Vader knew there was something more. Presence. Kenobi. He had felt the Force disturbed. Scouring archives and records, he discovered the destination of a runaway ship, Naboo. When Darth Vader's ship broke through the serene skies of Naboo, the population panicked. He landed unceremoniously and marched to the neighboring residence, Padmé's family. There he found guards down and doors wide open. But Padmé had already been taken to a rural hideout, and Obi-Wan was waiting. "I knew you'd come, Anakin," he said, standing on the edge of a flowery field. "You took everything from me?" replied Vader, eyes blazing from behind his black cloak. "She was mine." "No, she was free, and you lost her." The duel was inevitable. Sabers ignited, and the Force raged around them like an invisible storm. Unlike the confrontation in Mustafar, the terrain in Naboo was more open and full of life. The blows were more agile, the movements more furious. Obi-Wan tried to appeal to the humanity that still existed in Anakin. "You can still stop. Padmé is alive. She's dead to me. You poisoned her with lies." The green field soon became a battlefield. Rocks were thrown everywhere. Trees shattered as they were slashed by sabers, and the ground was increasingly scarred by the fighting. The two dueled like titans, but the weight of the dark side was already weighing on Vader's heels. Obi-Wan still fought with poise, using technique and wisdom. The fight continued through the ancient ruins of the Gungan era, where the echo of the sabers was eternal because of the echoes. Padmé, in a nearby hiding place, felt the conflict. The fresh contractions made her weak, but her heart beat in unison with the Force. She knew only one of them would make it out alive. Next to her children, she cried silently. The sounds of battle echoed in the distance. Obi-Wan managed to resist, but he was beginning to tire. Vader, consumed with rage, almost struck him with fatal blows. But a glitch, a memory, a hesitation on hearing Luke's name, and Obi-Wan took advantage. A force pushed through Vader against a fallen pillar. He fell, breathing hard. The duel was not over. The battle on Naboo would set a new course in the history of the galaxy. With Padmé alive and their children safe, hope was not just a whisper, but a seed growing in the fertile soil of Naboo. Obi-Wan knew that if they survived that night, the rebellion would have a new spark. And Darth Vader, even wounded, would not rest. His love, his hatred, his desire for Padme, everything was intertwined with his new identity. Destiny now hung by a thread, and the galaxy was waiting. Obi-Wan Kenobi, wounded and breathing hard, kept his saber activated, his eyes fixed on the opponent in front of him. Darth Vader, gasping heavily, advanced with calculated steps. His yellow eyes were burning like coals, consumed with fury and frustration. "You've never bested me," Vader muttered between his teeth, and launched a final attack. Obi-Wan tried to parry, but his already weakened arm failed. The blow went through his guard, hitting him in the chest. The Jedi Master fell to his knees, the saber slipping out of his hands. "Anakin," was all he managed to say before collapsing onto the grass stained with blood and Force dust. Padme appeared seconds later. She had felt everything, the fight, the danger, the end. Running across the field, her hair loose, her dress fluttering in the wind, she fell to her knees beside Obi-Wan's lifeless body. Tears streamed down her face as her eyes turned to Vader. "What have you done?" he shouted, his voice torn by despair and rage. Vader, still holding his saber, remained motionless. For the first time, silence reigned between them. "He was going to kill me," muttered Anakin, his breathing as heavy as an anchor. "He defended you from yourself," replied Padme. "You killed the man who always believed in you." Vader's saber fell to the ground. Anakin looked at his own hands as if seeing them for the first time. Obi-Wan's blood, the expression of pain, the last word muttered. It all hit him hard. "Padme, I'm sorry," he said, taking a shaky step towards her. But Padme leapt to her feet, clutching the twins in her arms. "Stay away from me." His voice was firm, icy. "You're a monster, Anakin. Don't you dare come near our children." Anakin recoiled as if he'd been hit again. "I did everything for you," he stammered. "You did everything for yourself," she replied. "Now go away, and don't ever come back." The words cut Anakin deeper than any saber could. He stood there for a moment, staring at Obi-Wan's body and Padme's merciless gaze. Emotions tore him apart inside. Anger, guilt, confusion, love. Slowly, he turned and left, walking back to his ship. The weight of what he had done pressed down on him like increased gravity. As the ship's engines roared and pulled away from the skies of Naboo, Anakin Skywalker, now just Darth Vader, felt the emptiness growing inside him. He had lost everything. The woman he loved, the mentor who had guided him, the peace he would never know. On his return to Coruscant, Anakin was a boiling pit of emotions. Palpatine was waiting for him at the top of the old Senate Tower, with a grim smile and appraising eyes. "I see you've accomplished your mission, Lord Vader." "Mission?" Anakin stepped forward, without removing his hood. "You tricked me. You manipulated me. You are more powerful than ever," said Palpatine. "You have freed yourself from the chains of the Jedi." "I killed Obi-Wan. In front of her. She hates me." Vader's voice wavered. "She'll never forgive me. You promised me I'd save Padme." "She's alive, isn't she?" replied the Sith, laughing. "The rest is weakness." Those words lit the final spark. The memory of Obi-Wan's body, Padme's cry, the children, her children, the horror. Anakin no longer saw Palpatine as a mentor, but as the architect of the ruin of his life. He approached the throne where the old Sith rested, his eyes blazing with fury. "You destroyed everything. You made me believe that she would die, that I could only save her for you." Palpatine stood up, angry. "I gave you power, ungrateful boy. Without me, you'd still be a slave. And with you, I'm a freak," replied Anakin, before activating his new red lightsaber. The confrontation between master and apprentice was brutal. Force lightning exploded through the walls of the hall. Palpatine launched waves of energy at Anakin, who struck back with furious attacks. The room shook. Statues of the old Senate were destroyed. Windows shattered under the pressure of the Force. "I am the Senate," shouted Palpatine, trying to use the absolute power that had kept him at the top for years. But Anakin, even wounded and divided, was now driven by something stronger than ambition: regret. With a roar, he broke through the Sith Lord's defenses and punched him in the chest. Palpatine let out a horrible scream and watched as Anakin ripped his own saber from his hands. With 2 red sabers in his hands, Anakin was easily able to block every beam Palpatine sent his way and also cut in 2 every piece of furniture or platform the Sith threw, and in one swift movement severed both his hands with a single blow. The former Sith tried to beg for mercy, but Vader was even more furious. In his rage, he had flashbacks of when he had seen his bloodied hands at Obi-Wan's death and felt repulsed by it. Without his hands, the Sith had no chance of winning, and Vader knew it. He discovered all the anger and frustration of having betrayed and lost everyone he loved. Vader made him fly from wall to wall, and when the Sith lost consciousness, Vader woke him up, causing even more pain. Until the moment came when the man with the deformed face couldn't get up again. In the end, Darth Vader just threw that old, decrepit body out of the window. The room fell silent. The Emperor's throne lay empty. The heart of the galaxy beat more slowly. Palpatine was dead, but the damage remained. "What have I done?" he whispered, his eyes briefly returning to blue. The Empire, although newly born, was now without a leader. And Vader, despite his victory, felt more lost than ever. He looked at the stars through the broken window and thought of the children he would never meet, of the love he had lost, and how to make amends for something irreversible. In the darkness of Coruscant, Anakin disappeared. He left the palace behind, his black robes, his mask all abandoned. He wandered through the alleys of the city, hidden from view. The galaxy continued, oblivious to the silent fall of the man who had been its promised one. Padmé, on Naboo, heard about Palpatine's demise through rumors, but she didn't say a word. She was busy with her children, trying to rebuild what was left. Although part of her still loved Anakin, she knew that he was no longer the same, and no matter how hard he tried to come back, she wouldn't let him. After Palpatine's death and the abandonment of his Darth Vader identity, Anakin Skywalker fled the galactic capital with no certain destination. Driven by unbearable guilt and the desire to hide from the galaxy, and from himself, he chose the place he despised most, Tatooine, the planet where he was born a slave, where he lost his mother, where he vowed never to return. And that's exactly why he decided to return. There, the pain was constant, the heat stifled, the sand burned, and the past haunted him at every step. "If hell exists anywhere in the galaxy, it's called Tatooine," he muttered as he stepped back onto the sand. Without revealing his name to anyone, Anakin isolated himself in the Rocky Mountains near the Junland Canyon, far from any inhabited center. He built a simple shelter with the remains of a forgotten ship and rudimentary tools. He had few things: a threadbare blanket, a canteen of water, a lightsaber hidden under rocks, and his guilt, his own original saber, not the red one that was destroyed. Every night the wind blew through the dunes, reminding him of what he had done. The voices of the past, the children in the Jedi Temple, Obi-Wan falling, Padmé screaming, echoed like hallucinations. He rarely slept, and when he did, he dreamt of fire and screams. The years passed slowly and tortuously. Anakin grew old like a haunted man. His hair grew uncontrollably into thick, messy curls, almost braided by the wind. His beard became a dark, thick bush, with strands intertwined with dust, sweat, and time. His nails were broken, stained with dirt, and his fingers were calloused. His skin, once golden, was now dry, marked by the cruel sun of Tatooine and the scars of old battles. His eyes, once bright, were deep and melancholy. There was no more armor, no cloak, no glory. Only the weight of existence. He spent his days wandering around the neighborhood, avoiding any contact. Occasionally he encountered Tusken villagers in the distance, but he didn't dare face them. In his exile, Anakin fed on what the land provided: dried roots, small rodents, and sometimes the silent generosity of Jawas, who left water in exchange for old parts that he repaired. At night, he would sit on the rocks and stare at the suns while thinking about his children. How will they be now? He asked himself, but he never looked for an answer. One day, when loneliness seemed about to consume him, Anakin knelt on the scorching sand under the clear skies of Tatooine. He closed his eyes and stretched out his hands, trying to touch the Force again. His connection was weak, blurred, as if the dark side still dominated him. But deep down, a spark was still there. "Force, listen to me," he whispered. "I was your faithful servant and then your traitor. Show me what to do. I don't want to die like this. I don't want to be forgotten as a monster." For months he remained still, meditating. And at that moment, the silence responded with a gentle wind. For the first time, he didn't feel alone. In deep meditation, Anakin faced conflicting visions. The dark side still called to him promises of power, control, justice for the pain he had suffered. It said that his actions were necessary, that the universe needed order. But the light side whispered differently: forgiveness, sacrifice, hope. It showed him Padmé smiling, Obi-Wan teaching, his children running free. It was an internal duel that lasted for days. He felt the two currents pulsing inside him, like a river divided by a stone. The pain pulled him into darkness, but lost love and the memory of what he once wanted to protect made him resist. It was then that Anakin had a moment of absolute clarity. Amidst the voices, he heard a familiar one: Qui-Gon Jinn. "The Force still lives in you, Anakin. Redemption requires courage." With tears in his eyes, he understood. He was no longer the chosen one who would save the galaxy with saber in hand. His mission was different now: to keep the spark of good alive, even if in silence, even if alone. He abandoned his anger once and for all. He would be a servant of the light again, not as a Jedi, but as a man. From that day on, Anakin began to train his spirit with discipline. Sleepless nights became meditation sessions. The anger that had previously overflowed turned into control. And the connection with the Force, which had previously been unstable, was now pure. He felt the cycles of nature, heard the whispers of the past and the flow of life. His presence began to bother desert predators, who fled when they sensed his energy. And the Tusken Raiders, once enemies, began to avoid his cave with reverence. The hermit had become a silent legend, the spirit of the sand. Even so, Anakin didn't consider himself worthy of redemption. He knew that his hands were stained, that he would never be forgiven by many, but he no longer sought external absolution. His penance was to live, to survive, and to wait for the moment when the Force would give him a new mission. The years had shaped not only his body, but his mind. He was no longer the impulsive young man who fell out of fear. Now he was a man marked by loss, driven by regret, guided by the Force. And far away, his children were growing up. One day they would cross the galaxy, and he would be ready. The death of Emperor Palpatine had a devastating effect on the structure of the Empire. Without its supreme leader, the Imperial war machine collapsed internally. Governors, admirals, and high-ranking officers vied for power like predators over a carcass. The Senate had long since been dissolved, and now the Imperial leadership was a political battlefield, dominated by betrayals, silent assassinations, and fragile alliances. Planets began to rebel or declare neutrality, which infuriated the remnants of the Imperial High Command. One of them, the brutal admiral, saw Naboo as a symbol of rebellion and decided that it should be destroyed to restore galactic fear. Naboo, peaceful and isolated, was never a military threat to the Empire, while Vader was at Palpatine's side. But it was the home planet of former Queen Padmé Amidala, now considered a traitor for protecting fugitive Jedi and allegedly hiding valuable Republic-era secrets. In addition, reports reached the Empire that 2 Force-sensitive children were being raised there. Rumors about Darth Vader's children spread like ghosts. When the Inquisitors heard these rumors, they took action. Joining the remnants of the Empire in search of power, they launched a devastating attack. TIE fighters swarmed the skies, while Imperial destroyers hovered like vultures. Padmé, now older but strong, helped evacuate civilians while protecting her children with all her might. Luke, now 10, tried to stay calm in the face of the chaos, while Leia, more impulsive, wanted to fight. They both felt something strange, as if something ancient and powerful was approaching. The royal palace was attacked with fury. The Inquisitors, led by the merciless second sister, were devastating ancient monuments, libraries and temples, eliminating anyone who opposed them. Their obsession was not only with domination, but with erasing symbols of hope and freedom, and among them, Naboo was the most symbolic. In a cave in the Tatooine desert, Anakin awoke from a restless sleep. The Force had raged like a storm. Images flooded his mind. The burning palace, Padmé's ashen face, Luke and Leia's frightened eyes. He felt the fear, the chaos, and the suffocating presence of the dark side. But something stronger was growing inside him, the will to protect. He stood up, shaved, pinned up his hair, and put on a clean robe. Buried under the stones, his old blue saber was still intact. He took it out, looking at the weapon in the light. It was time. The journey to Naboo was silent. Anakin piloted a small ship stolen from the Jawas, flying between systems without arousing suspicion. With each jump, he felt the presence of darkness intensifying. The Inquisitors were cruel and ruthless hunters trained to destroy the remaining Jedi. They led the invasion on Naboo with fervor, and the Imperial commanders dared not contradict them. The city was in ruins when Anakin arrived. He hid among the rubble, observing the damage. Families were crying. Children were hiding. All this rekindled his pain, but also his courage. No more running away, he told himself. Padmé was still a born leader. With blaster in hand, she helped civilians escape through the palace's ancient tunnels. When she saw an Inquisitor approaching Leia, she rushed to her defense, firing with precision. Luke, his eyes wide, tried to use the Force by instinct, pushing a beam that fell on a stormtrooper. The conflict around them was fierce. It was then that a bang in the sky caught their attention. Anakin's ship crossed the sky in flames and landed among the palace gardens, opening a crater with the landing. Soldiers rushed to surround the area, but soon hesitated. A hooded figure emerged from the smoke, silent but imposing. His brown cloak fluttered in the hot Naboo wind. One of the Inquisitors, the fourth brother, stepped forward. "Identify yourself now," he shouted. But the man didn't answer. Calmly, he took off his hood. The soldiers were confused. It was a familiar face, but older, more human. There was no mask, no hatred in his eyes. Only determination. Padmé, in the distance, held her breath. She recognized it. Luke took a step forward, as if he felt an invisible link pulling him towards that luminous presence. The Inquisitors felt the Force stir. The second sister stepped forward, ready to attack. "Are you Vader?" she asked, confused. Anakin looked directly into her eyes. "I was. Now I'm just a Jedi." Just then, his right hand moved to his waist. The soldiers, tense, raised their weapons. A silence overtook everyone. Then, with a precise movement, Anakin raised his blue saber and activated it. The familiar sound of the energy blade cut through the air, resounding like a thunderclap of justice. The Inquisitors instinctively took a step back. The blue lightsaber, symbol of the Jedi Order, glowed again, and with it, fear changed sides. Anakin's blue blade danced with the precision of a master. The Inquisitors were unprepared for the fury of someone who knew the dark side, but now wielded the light. One by one, they fell before his might. The fourth brother was the first, then the seventh sister, and 3 others who tried to surround him met no better fate. With firm, calculated movements, he deflected blows and responded with devastating impact. The ground was filled with debris, sparks, and defeated bodies. The Imperial soldiers hesitated. They had never seen a Jedi fight with such fury, but without losing their composure. Just then, a new ship landed near the ruins. Bail Organa emerged with a small detachment of Rebel Alliance soldiers. His eyes widened at the sight of the imposing figure, blue saber in hand and a familiar face. "That's him, Vader," he muttered, reluctantly raising his weapon. Before Bail could order an attack, Padme came running. She placed herself between Anakin and the rebels, raising her arms. "No!" she shouted. "He's not what you think he is. Take a good look. That's not Darth Vader. This is the man I loved, the Jedi who fought for peace." Upon defeating the last Inquisitor, Anakin raised his lightsaber towards the sky. His voice echoed through the rubble and conflicted hearts. "My name is not Darth Vader." He looked around at the remaining soldiers. "My name is Anakin Skywalker, son of Shmi Skywalker, Jedi of the Republic." Bail hesitated, surprised by Padmé's living presence and her words. Anakin lowered his saber. His eyes were not tinged with the yellow of hatred, but with the blue hues of hope. Padmé approached, touching his face, recognizing every scar, every line marked by time. "You came back to us?" she whispered with tears in her eyes. "I knew there was a bit of light in you. I always knew." And in that instant, she saw in Anakin the same young man who had once smiled at her on the fields of Naboo, before everything fell apart. Leia and Luke, curious, came out of hiding, running to their mother. Luke grabbed her hand and asked, wide-eyed, "Mom, who is he?" Padmé knelt down and hugged them tenderly. Her eyes did not leave Anakin, now at peace. With a smile full of emotion, Padmé replied, "Children, this is Anakin Skywalker, your father." And for the first time in many years, the ashes of war seemed to give way to something new hope.